Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the research ship Aurora and watched the stars pass by through the main window. His crew of 12 people had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, looking for new planets and studying anything interesting they could find. The mission was supposed to be simple and safe, just basic research work in an empty part of the galaxy where no one had been before. Lisa Rodriguez was down in the engine room fixing something that had been making strange noises for the past week. She was the best engineer Jake had ever worked with, always calm and focused, even when things went wrong. Ryan Campbell stood at his security station running routine checks on their defensive systems, though they had never needed them before. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in her lab studying rock samples from the last planet they had visited, excited about some minerals she had found. Everything changed when the space around them suddenly filled with massive alien ships that seemed to appear from nowhere. Jake counted at least 15 vessels, each one bigger than 3 Aurora ships put together. They were dark and covered with sharp edges that looked like weapons. The ships moved in perfect formation around the human vessel, trapping it completely. "Red alert," Jake said into his communication device, though he tried to keep his voice steady. "All crew to stations. We have company." The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen before. They looked like they were built for war, with weapons pointing in every direction. Strange symbols glowed on their hulls in colors that hurt to look at. One of the larger ships moved closer to the Aurora, and Jake could see movement through what might have been windows. Ryan appeared on the bridge within minutes, checking his weapons systems even though they all knew the Aurora was a research ship with only basic defenses. "Captain, I count 15 enemy vessels. They have us completely surrounded. Our weapons would not even scratch their armor." "Any communication attempts?" Jake asked. "Nothing on any frequency we know. They are just sitting there watching us." Lisa's voice came through the speakers from the engine room. "Captain, they are scanning us with some kind of technology I have never seen before. It feels like they are looking through our entire ship from top to bottom." Dr. Vasquez joined them on the bridge, still wearing her lab coat with mineral dust on it. "This is incredible. First contact with an alien species. We need to try to communicate with them. Show them we are peaceful." Before anyone could respond, a bright light filled the bridge, and suddenly there were aliens standing right there with them. Jake's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. The aliens were huge, almost 8 feet tall, with dark green scales covering their bodies like armor. Their eyes were bright yellow and their mouths were full of sharp teeth. Long claws extended from their fingers, and their faces looked like they belonged to some kind of reptile or dragon. The largest alien stepped forward and looked down at the humans. When it spoke, somehow they could understand the words, even though it was clearly not speaking English. "We are the Zephyrians. You are now our prey." Jake stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I am Captain Morrison. We come in peace. We are explorers, not warriors." The alien that had spoken tilted its head like it was confused. "Peace? We do not understand this word. You are soft creatures with no claws, no scales, no weapons worth mentioning. You will provide good sport for our hunters." Ryan tensed, but Jake held up a hand to keep him calm. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward with obvious excitement. "You are hunters? What do you hunt? How long has your species been traveling through space? Do you come from this part of the galaxy?" The aliens looked at each other with what might have been surprise. The leader spoke again. "This one asks questions instead of begging for mercy. Interesting. Most prey species scream and run when they see us." Lisa's voice came from behind them. "Excuse me, but did you just call us prey?" She had come up from the engine room and was wiping grease off her hands with a cloth, looking more annoyed than scared. "All species are prey to the Zephyrians. We have hunted across 1,000 worlds and claimed millions of trophies. Your species will be added to our collection." Elena was practically bouncing with scientific curiosity. A hunter species that travels between worlds. How do you select your targets? What criteria do you use? Have you encountered other species, similar to humans? The Zephyrian leader stepped closer to Elena, studying her with those bright yellow eyes. You show no fear. This is unusual. Most creatures we encounter either attack in desperation or cower in terror. Your kind does neither. Ryan finally spoke up. We evaluate threats and respond appropriately. You have superior numbers and technology, so fighting would be pointless right now. But that does not mean we are afraid. Not afraid? Another Zephyrian laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Perhaps these soft creatures are simply too stupid to understand their situation. Jake noticed that his crew was reacting exactly as he would have expected. Lisa was still focused on her engineering problems, checking a handheld device that monitored the ship's systems. Ryan was calmly assessing the aliens' weapons and armor, looking for weaknesses. Elena was studying the aliens themselves like they were fascinating specimens. None of them were panicking or begging, which seemed to confuse their captors. The Zephyrian leader made a decision. You will be transported to our hunting world. There you will be released with others of your kind and given time to prepare. Then we will hunt you for sport and glory. Those who provide good entertainment may be allowed to live longer. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same quiet determination in their eyes that he felt. Whatever these aliens expected from humans, they were about to be very disappointed. The transport ship landed on a world covered in thick forests and rolling hills under a pale green sky. Jake Morrison stepped out first, followed by his crew, and immediately began studying their surroundings. The air was breathable, and the gravity felt normal, which made sense if this was supposed to be a hunting ground for different species. Vextar, the Zephyrian pack leader, watched the humans from the transport ship's ramp. You have 1 full day. Before we begin the hunt, use this time wisely. Most prey species spend it running as far as they can and finding places to hide. The smart ones look for water and food sources. Lisa Rodriguez knelt down and picked up a handful of soil, testing its composition. Interesting mineral content. This planet has been terraformed to support multiple biologies. She was not even looking at the threatening alien as she spoke. You have captured other species before us, Dr. Elena Vasquez asked, pulling out a small device to scan the local plant life. How many different types? What were their survival rates? How long have you been using this world? Vextar made that grinding laugh sound again. Questions instead of fear. Your species grows more interesting with each moment. Yes, we have brought many prey types here over the centuries. Some still survive in the deep forests and mountain caves. Ryan Campbell was already checking sight lines and natural defensive positions. How many hunters will be pursuing us? What weapons do they carry? What are the rules of engagement? Rules. Vexatar looked confused. There are no rules in a hunt. We use whatever weapons we choose. You use whatever you can find or make. The Daoi goal is simple. Survive as long as possible and provide good entertainment. The Zephyrian transport lifted off, leaving the 12 humans alone on the alien world. Most people would have immediately started running or looking for hiding spots, but Jake's crew did something different. They gathered in a circle and began planning. First priority is information, Jake said. We need to understand this environment and find other survivors if they exist. Elena, what can you tell us about the local ecosystem? Elena was already scanning plants and taking readings. The vegetation is mostly edible and several species appear to be medicinal. Gravity is 0.9 Earth normal. Atmosphere is oxygen-rich. This world was definitely prepared to support Earth-like life forms. Lisa was studying the soil and rock formations. Good mineral content for tool making. I can see iron deposits in those hills and what looks like flint near that stream. Give me a few hours and I can make basic weapons and tools. Amy Chen, their tactical officer who had been quiet during the initial encounter, spoke up. If there are other survivors, we need to find them. 12 people against an unknown number of advanced hunters gives us poor odds. But if we can organize other survivors and work together, we might have a chance. Tony Martinez, their navigation specialist, was looking at the sun's position and the surrounding terrain. The hunters will expect us to scatter and hide individually. That is probably what every other species has done. We should do the opposite. They spent the next few hours exploring their immediate area and quickly found signs of other life forms. Ryan discovered carved symbols on trees that were clearly made by intelligent beings. Elena found tool marks on rocks that showed someone had been chipping away stone to make implements. As the day progressed, they encountered their first other survivor. It was a tall, thin being with blue skin and large dark eyes, clearly terrified. When it saw them approaching, the creature tried to run, but Amy Chen called out in a calm voice, "We are not hunters. We are prey like you. We want to help." The blue-skinned alien stopped and turned back, speaking in a musical language they could not understand, but its body language clearly showed fear and confusion. Elena approached slowly with her hands visible and empty. "My name is Elena. We are humans. What is your name?" The alien seemed to understand somehow, perhaps through a translation device it wore. "I am Kilo of the Melodian people. You are new prey? But you walk openly instead of hiding. The Zephyrians will find you easily." Ryan stepped forward. "How many of your people are still alive on this world? How long have you been here?" 3 of my pod survive. We have been here for 2 years, hiding in caves and running from the hunters. Many of my people have been taken as trophies. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Kilo, we want to meet with your pod and any other survivors you know about. We have a different plan than hiding and running." "What plan?" "There is no plan against the Zephyrians. They are too strong, too fast, too well armed." Lisa looked up from where she had been working with stones and metal scraps. "Every hunter has weaknesses. Every predator makes assumptions about their prey. We just need to find out what those assumptions are and turn them against the hunters." Over the next several hours, Kilo led them to a network of caves where they found not just the 3 remaining Melodians, but also representatives from 4 other species that had been dumped on this world over the years. There were the insect-like Kythera, the rock-skinned Valdorians, the furry mammalian Nexari, and even 2 survivors from a species called the Hrathi that looked somewhat like bears. All of them had spent years hiding and running, picking off scraps, and living in constant fear. They had never worked together because each species assumed the others might betray them to the hunters for better treatment. The concept of organized resistance was completely foreign to them. Amy Chen stood before the mixed group of aliens and began explaining basic military concepts. The Zephyrians expect you to act like frightened animals. They expect you to run and hide and compete with each other for resources. What if we did something they never expect? "What do you mean?" asked Yorvak, one of the bear-like Hrathi. "What if we fought back? What if we organized into a fighting force instead of scattered prey? What if we hunted the hunters?" The alien survivors looked at the humans like they had suggested something impossible. Kilo spoke for many of them. "The Zephyrians have never been defeated. They have armor and energy weapons. They are larger and stronger than any of us." Elena smiled as she finished analyzing samples from a poisonous plant she had found. "Larger and stronger does not always mean better. Ryan, show them what you found about Zephyrian tactics." Ryan had been studying tracks and signs left by previous hunts. They hunt in small groups, usually 3 or 4 individuals. They rely on fear and confusion to keep their prey scattered. They expect to track individuals or small groups who are trying to escape. They have never faced organized resistance, because no prey species has ever offered it. Lisa held up several crude but effective weapons she had constructed from local materials. Their technology is advanced, but they are overconfident. Overconfident enemies make mistakes. They get careless. And when they get careless, Even primitive weapons can be deadly. Tony had been mapping the area and tracking Zephyrian patrol patterns from previous hunts. I can predict where they will be and when. If we coordinate our movements, we can control when and where we encounter them. Jake looked around at the mixed group of aliens and humans. The choice is yours. You can keep hiding and running until they eventually catch and kill you. Or you can stand with us and fight back. Either way, tomorrow the hunt begins. The morning sun cast long shadows through the forest as Tony Martinez finished setting up the communication network. He had spent most of the night connecting simple relay devices made from salvaged materials, creating a way for the scattered resistance groups to coordinate their movements. The alien survivors had never seen anything like it. Each group has a communicator now, Tony explained to the mixed assembly of humans and aliens gathered in the main cave. When the Zephyrians start their hunt, we will know exactly where they are at all times. Lisa Rodriguez stood beside a collection of weapons and tools that would have seemed impossible just days before. Working with materials from the forest and mineral deposits, she had created spears with metal points, simple explosive devices using local chemical plants, and even basic armor from processed tree bark and metal scraps. The Zephyrians expect to find scared prey hiding in caves, Lisa said, as she handed weapons to volunteers. Instead, they are going to find prepared fighters who know they are coming. Amy Chen had been working with the alien survivors, teaching them basic military tactics. The Melodians were naturally good at moving quietly through the forest. The Cathara could climb trees and rocks better than any other species. The rock-skinned Valdorians were incredibly strong once they stopped being afraid. Even the furry Nexari had sharp teeth and claws they had never learned to use as weapons. Remember, Amy told the group, we do not fight fair. We do not give them a chance to use their superior strength. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we disappear before they can. React. Dr. Elena Vasquez had made perhaps the most important discovery of all. While studying Zephyrian equipment left behind from previous hunts, she had found that their armor had weak points, designed for ventilation and mobility. She had also created several biological weapons using poisonous plants that would affect reptilian physiology. Their scales protect them from direct attacks, Elena explained, but they have gaps here and here. She pointed to diagrams she had drawn on the cave wall. Also, this plant extract will cause severe breathing problems for any reptilian species. A small amount on a weapon tip will incapacitate them quickly. Ryan Campbell had been studying Zephyrian hunting patterns and had made a disturbing discovery. They do not just hunt for food or territory. They hunt because it makes them feel powerful. Taking trophies from intelligent species is how they measure success in their society. This means they will take risks to get the perfect kill, rather than just eliminating threats efficiently. Jake Morrison looked around at what had once been a group of terrified refugees and was now becoming something completely different. The aliens were standing straighter, holding weapons with confidence, and most importantly, they were working together instead of competing for resources. Today we find out if our plan works, Jake announced. Remember, the goal is not to win every fight. The goal is to show them that hunting us has consequences. The first Zephyrian hunting party consisted of 3 hunters, led by a veteran named Krixtal, who had claimed over 50 trophies in his career. They moved through the forest with casual confidence, following tracking devices that showed the general location of prey animals. According to their sensors, there was a concentration of life forms near the central river. Easy hunting today, Krixtal told his companions. The sensors show they are gathered together, probably fighting over food or water. We can take several trophies before they even know we are here. What the Zephyrians found instead was carefully prepared ambush positions and coordinates that had been chosen specifically to limit their movement options. Ryan Campbell had selected a narrow valley with steep sides where the hunters would have to approach from predictable directions. The attack began when Yorvok, one of the Hrathi survivors, deliberately made himself visible on the valley floor. The Zephyrians immediately moved to surround what they thought was isolated prey, walking directly into prepared positions. Amy Chen gave the signal, and suddenly the forest came alive with coordinated attacks. Spears with poisoned tips flew from concealed positions while Lisa's explosive devices detonated at carefully chosen moments. The Melodians used their natural agility to attack and retreat before the hunters could react. The Cathara dropped from trees onto the Zephyrians' backs, targeting the weak points Elena had identified. Crixtal found himself facing something he had never encountered in decades of hunting. Instead of running prey, he was fighting organized resistance. Instead of fear, he saw determination. Instead of scattered individuals, he faced coordinated attacks from multiple directions. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes, but when it ended, 2 Zephyrians were dead and Crixtal was captured alive. The resistance had suffered only minor injuries, and those were quickly treated with medical supplies Elena had prepared from local plants. News of the successful ambush spread through the communication network Tony had established. For the first time in years, the alien survivors began to believe that fighting back was possible. More importantly, they began to see the humans not as fellow prey, but as natural leaders who understood warfare in ways their own species never had. "We interrogate the prisoner," Ryan announced, looking down at the captured Crixtal. "We need to understand their technology, their numbers, and their psychology." Elena approached the wounded Zephyrian with medical supplies. "We will treat your injuries. In return, you will answer our questions." Crixtal looked up at the humans with something that might have been fear for the first time in his life. "This is impossible. Prey does not capture hunters. Prey does not organize attacks. What are you?" Jake knelt down beside the alien hunter. "We are humans, and you made a mistake when you assumed we were prey." "Humans," Crixtal repeated the word like it was a curse. "I will remember this name. My pack leaders will remember this name. You have done something that has never been done before." Lisa was already studying the Zephyrians' weapons and armor, reverse engineering their technology. "Their equipment is advanced but not magical. We can adapt their weapons for our own use. We can understand their communication systems. We can turn their own technology against them." Tony had connected to the hunter's communication device and was monitoring Zephyrian transmissions. "They are sending distress signals. The other hunting parties know something went wrong here. They are going to come looking for answers." Amy smiled as she checked her weapons. "Good. Let them come. We have more surprises waiting for them." Over the following days, the resistance grew stronger and bolder. Each successful ambush brought more alien survivors out of hiding. Each captured piece of Zephyrian technology gave Lisa new capabilities to work with. Each interrogated prisoner gave Elena and Ryan more information about their enemy's weaknesses. The hunting preserve was becoming something it had never been before. Dangerous for the hunters. Zephyrian patrols that had once moved through the forest with casual confidence now traveled in larger groups and maintained constant communication with their ships in orbit. But the humans and their allies were learning too. They studied Zephyrian psychology and discovered that a species built around the concept of hunting had never developed strategies for being hunted. They learned that Zephyrian society measured status by successful kills, which meant individual hunters would take risks to claim personal glory rather than work together effectively. Most importantly, they learned that the Zephyrians had never faced an enemy that treated warfare as a science rather than a contest of individual strength. The aliens understood hunting, but they did not understand war, and humans had been practicing war for thousands of years. Jake stood on a hill overlooking the valley where they had won their first victory and watched as more alien survivors emerged, from years of hiding to join their growing resistance. In just a few days, they had gone from 12 human researchers to a coordinated fighting force of over 60 individuals from 7 different species. They wanted to hunt us, he said to Ryan as they planned their next operation. Now they are going to learn what it feels like to be prey. The communication array aboard the Zephyrian mothership crackled with emergency transmissions as pack leader Vextar received reports that made no sense. 3 hunting parties had gone missing in 2 days. Equipment signals had gone dead. Most disturbing of all, the few survivors who managed to escape spoke of organized attacks by prey species working together. "This is impossible," Elder Huntress Kratha announced as she reviewed the reports. She had arrived with a full battle fleet of 12 ships after receiving Vexitar's distress call. Prey does not organize. Prey does not fight back effectively. Prey certainly does not capture and kill experienced hunters. Vextar pulled up sensor readings from the planet's surface. The humans are the key to this change. Before they arrived, the prey species hid individually and competed with each other for resources. Now they work together, share information, and coordinate attacks. The humans have taught them to fight. Humans? Kratha repeated the word with distaste. What makes this species different from the others? They appear physically weak, with no natural weapons or armor. They think differently. Where other prey species see impossible odds and give up, humans see problems to solve. They do not accept their position as prey. They study our weaknesses and find ways to exploit them. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Elena Vasquez was doing exactly what Vextar described. She had been studying captured Zephyrian equipment and had made several important discoveries about their technology and psychology. The resistance had grown to over 100 members from 9 different species, all coordinated through communication networks that Tony Martinez had expanded across half the continent. Their society is built around individual achievement. Elena explained to the Leadership Council that now included representatives from all the surviving species. Each hunter competes with others for the most impressive kills. This means they do not work well together when facing organized resistance. Lisa Rodriguez had been reverse engineering Zephyrian weapons and had successfully created human versions that could be manufactured using local materials. Their energy weapons are powered by crystalline batteries that can be overloaded to create explosive devices. We now have the ability to destroy their equipment and even their small aircraft. Ryan Campbell had been analyzing Zephyrian tactical patterns and had identified their greatest weakness. They have never faced an enemy that uses psychological warfare. Everything they do is based on intimidating their prey into helpless panic. When that intimidation fails, they do not have backup strategies. Amy Chen had been training mixed-species combat teams and had discovered that different alien abilities could be combined in ways the Zephyrians never expected. The Melodians can move silently. The Cathara can climb impossible surfaces. The Valdorians can break through armor with their strength. When we coordinate these abilities, we become more dangerous than any single species could be alone. Jake Morrison looked at the tactical displays Tony had created, showing Zephyrian positions and patrol patterns. They are changing their behavior. Larger groups, more cautious movement, constant communication with their ships. They are learning to be afraid of us. Good, said Kilo, the Melodian representative who had become one of their most effective fighters. Let them experience the fear they have caused others for so many years. Beth Turner, the Aurora's communications officer, had been working on perhaps the most ambitious project of all. Using captured Zephyrian technology, she had managed to hack into their communication networks and was monitoring their transmissions. What she discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. They are sending messages throughout their empire, Beth reported. Word is spreading that a prey species has not only fought back, but has been successful. Other species on other worlds are beginning to resist. That is the good news, Jake said. What is the bad news? Elder Huntress Kratha has been given permission to end the hunt early. Instead of continuing to send small hunting parties, they are preparing to bombard the planet from orbit. They would rather destroy everything than admit that prey can Defeat predators. The Resistance leadership gathered in their main command cave to discuss this new threat. The success they had achieved against ground-based hunters meant nothing if the Zephyrians could simply destroy the planet from space. Elena had been studying atmospheric readings and orbital mechanics. Orbital bombardment requires them to maintain stable positions above specific targets. If we can capture one of their shuttles and get people into space, we might be able to disrupt their attack. Lisa looked up from the Zephyrian technology she had been studying. Their shuttles use the same crystalline power systems as their hand weapons. I can modify the power cores to overload catastrophically. If we can get close enough to their main ships, we can cause significant damage. Ryan was already planning the most audacious operation in the history of the Resistance. We need volunteers for what is essentially a suicide mission. We capture a shuttle, modify it with explosives, and attack their fleet directly. Not a suicide mission, Amy corrected. A victory mission. We go up there not to die, but to win. We show them that humans do not just fight back when cornered. We take the fight to our enemies wherever they think they are safe. Tony had been monitoring Zephyrian flight patterns and had identified their weakness. They schedule regular supply runs between the planet and their main fleet. The shuttles follow predictable routes at specific times. We can intercept one during its next approach. The plan they developed was complex and dangerous, but it offered their only chance of preventing orbital bombardment. A mixed team of humans and aliens would ambush the next supply shuttle, capture it intact, and use it to approach the Zephyrian fleet. Once close enough, they would deploy improvised explosive devices designed to cripple the enemy ships. Elena had made one more crucial discovery about Zephyrian psychology. Their entire society is based on the concept that they are the ultimate predators. If we can broadcast evidence of their defeats to other species throughout their empire, it will cause psychological damage that might be more effective than any weapon. Beth had been working on exactly that project. I can hack their communication networks and send transmissions to every world in Zephyrian space. Video evidence of dead hunters, captured equipment, successful resistance operations. For the first time, their prey species will see that the hunters can be killed. Do it, Jake decided. Send the message to every species in their empire. Show them that the Zephyrians are not invincible gods. Show them that organized resistance can work. As Beth began transmitting throughout Zephyrian space, the Resistance prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. Volunteers from every species stepped forward, understanding that success would mean freedom for countless worlds, while failure would mean extinction for everyone on the planet. Lisa finished modifying the explosive devices that would be their primary weapons in space. These will not just damage their ships, they will send a message that prey species can strike back at the heart of Zephyrian power. Ryan checked the weapons and equipment for the assault team. Remember, we are not just fighting for this planet. We are fighting for every species the Zephyrians have ever hunted and every species they plan to hunt in the future. Amy looked around at the mixed group of humans and aliens who had volunteered for the mission. 6 months ago, you were all hiding in caves, waiting to die. Today, you are preparing to attack the most powerful predator species in the galaxy. That transformation is what makes this fight worth winning. Jake stood before the assembled resistance fighters, looking at faces from 9 different worlds who had found common cause in the fight for freedom. Tomorrow, we find out if prey can truly become predators. Tomorrow, we discover whether the hunters can learn to fear the hunted. Elder Huntress Kratha stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the planet below and preparing to give the order for orbital bombardment. She had no idea that her decision would trigger the largest resistance movement in galactic history, or that the humans she dismissed as weak prey were about to bring the fight directly to her. The Zephyrian supply shuttle approached the planet's surface following its normal route, completely unaware that Ryan Campbell and his mixed-species strike team were waiting in carefully prepared positions along the flight path. The pilot had made this run dozens of times and saw no reason to be cautious when dealing with primitive prey species that had no air capabilities. Amy Chen gave the signal when the shuttle reached the optimal intercept point. Lisa Rodriguez triggered the modified Zephyrian explosive devices she had buried along the landing zone, creating electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the shuttle's navigation systems. As the craft made an emergency landing, the strike team moved in with practiced coordination. The three Zephyrian crew members expected to face desperate animals armed with sticks and stones. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by organized fighters using their own technology against them. Tony Martinez had learned their communication protocols and jammed their distress signals, while Elena Vasquez used concentrated plant toxins to incapacitate them quickly and efficiently. "Shuttle secured," Ryan reported through the communication network. "Beginning modifications now." Lisa was already working on the captured vessel, installing the explosive devices she had created from overloaded Zephyrian power cells. But more. Importantly, she was studying the shuttle's systems and learning how to pilot it. "Give me 2 hours and I can fly this thing anywhere in the system." Beth Turner connected her hacking equipment to the shuttle's communication array and began broadcasting on every Zephyrian frequency. The messages she sent included video evidence of dead hunters, captured equipment, and testimonials from liberated prey species. For the first time in their history, species throughout Zephyrian space saw proof that the hunters could be defeated. The reaction throughout the Empire was immediate and dramatic. On dozens of worlds, prey species that had been hiding for generations began to emerge from their refuges. The psychological impact of seeing dead Zephyrians was devastating to a society built on the assumption of predator superiority. "The transmissions are reaching every corner of their empire," Beth reported. "I am intercepting responses from at least 40 different worlds. Species that have been enslaved for centuries are beginning to resist." Jake Morrison studied the tactical situation as reports came in from orbit. "Kratha is accelerating her bombardment schedule. We have maybe 6 hours before they start destroying the planet from space." Elena had been studying the captured shuttle and had made an important discovery about Zephyrian technology. "Their ships are heavily armed, but they depend on centralized computer systems for coordination. If we can get close enough to upload a virus into their network, we can disable multiple vessels simultaneously." The strike team that would assault the Zephyrian fleet consisted of 8 volunteers, 4 humans, and representatives from 4 different alien species. Each had specific skills that would be crucial for the mission's success. Ryan would lead. The assault, Amy would handle tactics, Lisa would pilot the shuttle and manage technical systems, and Elena would deploy the biological and computer weapons they had developed. Kilo of the Melodians volunteered because his species had natural abilities that made them excellent at moving through confined spaces like ship corridors. Jorvak the Harathi provided raw strength that could breach reinforced barriers. Zix of the Kithara could climb through ventilation systems and access areas impossible for larger species. Finally, Vorn of the Valdorians offered nearly impenetrable natural armor that could protect the team during firefights. "Remember," Jake told the strike team as they prepared to launch, "your primary mission is to prevent orbital bombardment. Everything else is secondary. Get close enough to upload Elena's virus and disable their fleet coordination." The stolen shuttle lifted off and began its approach to the Zephyrian fleet, using captured authorization codes to avoid immediate detection. Lisa had studied their flight patterns and knew exactly how to mimic normal supply run protocols. Elder. Huntress Kratha stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as her fleet prepared for bombardment. She had received disturbing reports about resistance movements breaking out across the Empire, but she was confident that destroying this planet would send a clear message about the consequences of defying Zephyrian authority. Prey species throughout our territory are rebelling, her tactical officer reported. The transmissions from this world have inspired coordinated uprisings on 16 different planets. All the more reason to end this quickly, Kratha decided. Once we destroy the humans and their allies, The other rebellions will collapse when they see the futility of resistance. She had no idea that the shuttle requesting permission to dock was carrying the very prey species she intended to exterminate. Lisa brought the shuttle into the flagship's docking bay with expert precision, using stolen access codes and forged manifests to avoid suspicion. The 8-person strike team waited until the bay doors sealed before beginning their assault. The attack was swift and devastating. Zephyrian crew members expecting to unload supplies instead found themselves facing coordinated assault teams using their own technology against them. Elena's biological weapons proved especially effective in the enclosed environment of the ship, while Lisa's modified explosive devices created chaos throughout the vessel's systems. But the real victory came when Elena accessed the ship's central computer and uploaded the virus she had created. Within minutes, the malicious code had spread throughout the fleet's communication network, disrupting coordination between ships and disabling key weapons systems. Kraitha watched in disbelief as her carefully planned bombardment fell apart. Ship after ship reported system failures, communication breakdowns, and internal explosions. The prey species she had dismissed as weak and primitive were systematically destroying her fleet from within. "How is this possible?" she demanded as emergency alerts filled the bridge. "They are just animals with primitive technology." Ryan Campbell appeared on the bridge with his assault team, having fought their way through the ship's security forces. "We are humans, and you made the mistake of assuming that intelligence is determined by physical strength." The capture of Elder Huntress Kraitha sent shockwaves throughout Zephyrian space. For the first time in their recorded history, a senior member of the hunting elite had been taken prisoner by prey species. The psychological impact was even greater than the military victory. Elena began interrogating Kraitha immediately, not for information about military plans, but for insights into Zephyrian psychology and society. What she discovered was a species so dependent on the fear of others that they had never developed strategies for dealing with resistance. "Your entire civilization is built on a lie," Elena told the captured Elder Huntress. "You convinced yourselves that physical superiority makes you natural rulers, but you never learned how to deal with species that refused to accept your dominance." Amy was coordinating with the resistance on the planet's surface, using the captured fleet's communication systems to broadcast updates throughout Zephyrian space. Every transmission showed more evidence of successful resistance operations and encouraged other prey species to continue their uprisings. Lisa had been studying the flagship's advanced technology and was already planning how to adapt it for the Resistance's use. "Their ships are powerful, but they are designed for hunting scattered individuals, not fighting coordinated military forces. We can turn their own fleet against them." Tony was monitoring communications throughout the Empire and reporting on the spreading rebellions. 47 worlds are now in open revolt. Species that have been enslaved for centuries are driving Zephyrian forces off their planets. The Empire is collapsing. Jake stood on the bridge of the captured flagship, looking out at the stars and thinking about how much had changed in just a few weeks. They had started as 12 human researchers on a routine mission and had somehow triggered the largest liberation movement in galactic history. But Elena's discovery about Zephyrian psychology had revealed something important about humans as well. They were not naturally peaceful or naturally violent. They adapted to whatever situation they faced. When protecting others, they could be more ruthless and effective than any predator species. When offering help, they could be more generous than any other civilization. "What happens now?" Kilo asked as he watched Zephyrian crew members surrender throughout the ship. Ryan looked around at the mixed group of humans and aliens who had accomplished the impossible. "Now we make sure this never happens again. We build something better than an empire based on fear." Amy smiled as she received reports of successful liberation operations from across the galaxy. "The hunters wanted to make trophies out of us. Instead, we are going to make teachers out of them. They are going to learn what it means to live in a universe where strength comes from cooperation instead of domination. Elder Huntress Kratha watched her captors with something approaching respect for the first time in her life. These prey species had not just defeated her, they had shown mercy when they could have killed her. The concept was so alien to Zephyrian, thinking that it broke her understanding of how the universe worked. "What will you do with us?" she asked. 6 months after the liberation of the hunting preserve, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Liberation, formerly the Zephyrian flagship that his team had captured during their desperate assault. The vessel had been extensively modified with human engineering improvements and now served as the command ship for the Free Species Alliance. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted when 12 human researchers first encountered the Zephyrian hunting fleet. What had started as a simple research mission had become the catalyst for the largest liberation movement in recorded history. Lisa Rodriguez had established industrial complexes on 17 different worlds, teaching formerly enslaved species how to build their own ships, weapons, and defensive systems. Her engineering teams included representatives from 43 different species, all working together to create technology designed for protection rather than predation. "The new defensive platforms around Melodia are online," Lisa reported, from her engineering station. "Any Zephyrian ships that try to raid that world will find themselves facing weapons designed specifically to counter their technology." Dr. Elena Vasquez had become the director of the Alliance's Xenobiological Research Division, studying how different species could work together more effectively. Her discoveries about cooperation and mutual aid had been distributed throughout the galaxy, replacing the Zephyrian philosophy of domination with something completely different. "The psychological rehabilitation programs are showing excellent results," Elena announced during the daily briefing. "Former Zephyrian hunters who choose to participate are learning to redirect their instincts toward protection rather than predation." Amy Chen commanded the Alliance military forces, training mixed species units that could respond to threats anywhere in the galaxy. Her forces included reformed Zephyrians who had chosen to join the Alliance rather than continue their old ways of hunting sentient beings. Intelligence reports indicate 3 more worlds have successfully driven off Zephyrian raiding parties, Amy reported. The hunters are learning that prey species are no longer helpless victims. Tony Martinez operated the galaxy's most advanced communication network, connecting liberated worlds and coordinating mutual defense agreements. His systems ensured that no species would ever again face extinction in isolation. 49 worlds have joined the Alliance this month, Tony announced. Species that have been hiding for centuries are emerging and taking their place as full members of galactic civilization. Beth Turner had become the Alliance's chief intelligence officer, monitoring Zephyrian communications and tracking the remnants of their empire. Most Zephyrian clans had either surrendered or retreated to remote systems where they struggled to adapt to a universe that no longer feared them. Vextar's clan has requested permission to establish a settlement on Kepler 442b, Beth reported. They want to learn farming instead of hunting. They have formally renounced their predatory traditions. Ryan Campbell served as the Alliance's strategic commander, but his role had evolved beyond military planning. He now spent most of his time teaching other species about human concepts of warfare, diplomacy, and conflict resolution. "The important thing to understand," Ryan explained to a mixed group of alien military officers, "is that being capable of violence and choosing to use violence are completely different things. Humans can be extremely dangerous when protecting others, but we prefer to find peaceful solutions when possible." Jake looked around the bridge at his diverse crew and thought about the transformation they had all undergone. The humans had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed, while their alien allies had learned that cooperation could accomplish things that individual strength never could. Elder Huntress Kratha, now known simply as Cray, worked as a cultural advisor helping other Zephyrians adapt to the new galactic order. She had spent months learning human concepts of ethics and cooperation, struggling to understand a worldview that valued protection over predation. "It is difficult for my people to accept," Cray admitted during one of her regular reports. "We defined ourselves by our ability to hunt others. Without that identity, we must discover who we are meant to be." Elena had worked extensively with Cray and other reformed Zephyrians, helping them develop new social structures based on cooperation rather than competition. Every species has the capacity for change. The Zephyrians are learning that there are forms of strength that do not require dominating others, but Jake knew that the transformation was not complete. Reports continued to arrive of isolated Zephyrian clans that refused to accept the new order, still attempting to raid vulnerable worlds and capture sentient beings for their twisted hunts. "Sir," Beth announced, "we are receiving a distress signal from the Outer Rim. A species called the Anari are reporting attacks by unknown predators. The description matches Zephyrian tactics, but the attackers appear to be from a different species entirely." Jake felt a familiar sensation. The same combination of determination and controlled anger that had driven him during the first Zephyrian hunt. Somewhere in the galaxy, innocent beings were being terrorized by predators who thought intelligence made them natural victims. "Plot a course for the Outer Rim," Jake ordered. "Signal the fleet to prepare for deployment. It seems we have work to do." Amy smiled as she began coordinating the Alliance response. "Another predator species that thinks intelligent beings make good prey. They are about to learn the same lesson the Zephyrians did." Lisa was already analyzing the technical specifications they would need for the mission. "If these new predators are anything like the Zephyrians, they will be overconfident and unprepared for organized resistance. We can adapt our tactics accordingly." Elena began researching what little information they had about this new threat. Every predator species makes the same mistake. They assume that being physically powerful makes them naturally superior. They never expect their prey to fight back intelligently. Ryan was planning the military response, but he was also thinking about the long-term implications. Each time we encounter a new predator species, we learn more about how to protect others effectively. Each victory makes the galaxy safer for everyone. Tony opened communication channels to every world in Alliance space. "Alert all member species. We have a new threat to deal with, but we also have new allies to protect. The Free Species Alliance responds to aggression against any sentient being." As the Liberation and its escort fleet jumped to hyperspace, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. They had started as victims of Zephyrian hunting and had ended up as the galaxy's protectors against predatory species. The humans had learned something important about themselves during the crisis with the Zephyrians. They were not naturally peaceful pacifists, nor were they aggressive conquerors. They were adapters, capable of becoming whatever the situation required. When protecting others, they could be more ruthless than any predator. When building alliances, they could be more generous than any other species. "Captain," Kilo reported from his position at the science station, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships in the target system. The new predators appear to have a significant fleet." Jake smiled as he watched the stars streak by outside the bridge windows. "Good. Let them bring their entire fleet. It has been too long since we reminded the galaxy what happens to species that prey on the innocent." Elena looked up from her research on the new threat. "The Anari described their attackers as being twice the size of Zephyrians and completely without mercy. They apparently consider intelligence a sign of weakness rather than strength." "Then they are about to receive a very educational experience," Amy observed as she reviewed the tactical plans. "They will learn that intelligence, combined with determination, makes for very dangerous prey." Ryan checked the status of their weapon systems and alliance coordination networks. "Every time we encounter a new predator species, they make the same assumptions the Zephyrians did. They think physical strength equals dominance. They think fear equals control. They think prey cannot become predators." Jake stood as the fleet prepared to drop out of hyperspace near the Anari homeworld. Then we will teach them the same lesson we taught the Zephyrians. In this galaxy, there are predators and there is prey. But humans decide which category they belong to, and right now, we choose to be predators. The Liberation and its escorts emerged from hyperspace to find a fleet of alien ships bombarding the defenseless Anari homeworld. The attackers were massive, heavily armed, and completely confident in their superiority over what they considered primitive prey. They were about to discover that in a universe protected by the Free Species Alliance, there was only one apex predator species, and those predators had learned their skills by hunting the hunters themselves.